Did you know that the average person will spend the last 2 years of their life completely dependent on someone else for basic survival? 2 years. That's 730 days of being washed, fed, turned in a bed, and talked to like a child. And for most people, it doesn't have to be that way. But here's the thing they don't tell you. The decision that seals that fate isn't made when you're frail. It's made decades earlier, in 1,000 tiny moments you don't even notice. I'm 92. I'm sitting in a chair that smells faintly of bleach and the person who sat here before me. My daughter Susan, she's a good girl. She's 67 now, which is strange because in my head she's still that 7-year-old with skinned knees asking me to push her on the swing. She visits every Sunday. She brings me a slice of carrot cake from that bakery I used to love, and she holds my hand and asks me how I'm feeling. And I tell her I'm fine, because what's the point of telling the truth? The truth is, I'm in a place I swore I'd never be, and I'm going to die here. But I don't want you to feel sorry for me. I want you to pay attention. Because if you're listening to this, if you're in your 50s, your 60s, even your 70s, there's a fork in the road coming. And the path you take is going to be decided by something that feels completely unrelated to aging. Let me back up. When I was 75, I was playing tennis. Not well, but I was out there. I was driving myself to the grocery store. I was balancing my own checkbook. I was telling my kids not to worry about me. I was fiercely, stubbornly independent, and that was the problem. I mistook independence for strength. I thought being able to do everything myself meant I was winning at getting old, but I was actually building a prison, brick by brick. See, my house was a 2-story colonial. I loved that house. My husband, God rest him, and I bought it in 1962. The stairs were always a bit steep, but I managed. I told myself, stairs are good. They keep you young. And for a while they did. But then my knees started to grumble. Not a scream, just a grumble. I'd go up them slowly, one hand on the railing, telling myself it was just a touch of arthritis. Normal, nothing to worry about. Then I stopped going upstairs during the day. I'd bring everything down in the morning, my clothes, my medication, a book, and camp out on the first floor. I told myself it was efficient. It wasn't efficient. It was me shrinking. It was me drawing a smaller and smaller circle around myself and calling it comfort. My kids started noticing. Susan would say, "Mom, maybe we should think about a stair lift." And I'd snap at her. A stair lift? I'm not an invalid. I'm not putting that ugly thing in my beautiful home. My son Michael, he'd say, "What about a ranch-style place? 1 level, you'd be safer." And I'd wave him off. I've lived here for 40 years. I'm not leaving my home. And look, I get it. You're listening to this, and you're probably nodding because you've had that exact conversation with your own parent, or you're steeling yourself to have it with your kids. But let me flip this for you. It's not about the stair lift. It's about what the stair lift represents. It represents surrender. It represents the first step on a path that ends in a place like this. And I was so terrified of that final destination that I refused to take any of the smaller, manageable steps that could have kept me away from it. Here's the surprising insight that nobody told me when I was 75. The people who age well aren't the ones who fight hardest to stay in their big old houses. The people who age well are the ones who downsize early on their own terms, while they still have the mental clarity to choose where they go and what they bring with them. They're the ones who look at their future self, the one with creaky knees and slower reflexes, and they make decisions for that person, not for the person they used to be. But I didn't do that. I stayed. And staying meant I stopped having people over. Because who wants to invite friends to a house where the only bathroom is upstairs, and you have to warn them about the treacherous step in the hallway? So I stopped hosting book club. I stopped having the neighbors over for wine. My world got smaller. Then came the fall. It's always the fall, isn't it? It was a Tuesday. I was carrying a laundry basket up those stairs, something I'd told myself I wouldn't do anymore. But I was stubborn, and the laundry needed doing. I missed a step, not even a whole flight, just one step. But at 82, one step is all it takes. I broke my hip. Now, if I'd moved to that 1-level place when Michael suggested it, I'd have recovered in my own home with visiting physical therapy, and I'd probably still be there. But I was in that 2-story house, so the hospital wouldn't discharge me unless someone was with me 24/7 because I couldn't do stairs. Susan lived 45 minutes away. Michael lived in another state. So the doctor said, "We'll send her to a rehab facility for a few weeks, just until she's strong enough to manage the stairs." A few weeks, those were the words. I remember them exactly. A few weeks. Rehab was fine. It was temporary. I was the oldest person there who still had all her marbles. And I used that. I charmed the nurses. I did my exercises. I was determined to get back to my house. And I did. After 6 weeks, I went home. But here's the thing about being 82 with a newly healed hip and a 2-story house. You're terrified. Every step becomes a calculation. Every time you stand up, you're braced for pain. I started using a walker, which I hated. I stopped cooking because standing at the stove was too much. I started ordering those frozen meals that taste like cardboard and regret. My daughter started coming by every day. Then she started staying overnight. Then she started looking exhausted. I could see it in her eyes, that mix of love and exhaustion and resentment that she'd never admit to. And one day, she sat me down and she said the words I'd been dreading. She said, "Mom, I can't keep doing this. I'm not sleeping. My marriage is suffering. I'm terrified you're going to fall again, and I won't be here. We need to think about a place where you'll have people around who can help you." And I said no. Of course I said no. I said, "You're not putting me in a home?" I said it like it was a threat, like she was trying to get rid of me. And the look on her face, I'll never forget it. It was the look of someone who had just been asked to choose between her mother and her own life. We went back and forth for months. I was angry. She was guilty. It was this awful slow-motion car crash of family dynamics. And eventually, I didn't have a choice. I had another fall. A minor one, just a slip in the kitchen. But it was enough. The social worker at the hospital sat me down and explained very gently that if I went back to that house, the state might get involved if I had another incident. They'd deem me unable to care for myself. And that's when I realized the choice was no longer mine, because I'd waited too long to make it. So here I am. And let me tell you what here is, because I want you to understand the difference between what you imagine and what it actually is. It's not that it's cruel. That's the twisted part. It's nice. The staff is kind. The food is edible. There's a little garden out back. But it's a waiting room. That's what it is. It's a clean, well-lit, professionally staffed waiting room for the end of your life. Every day I wake up at the same time because they come to check on me. I eat what they put in front of me. I sit in the common area and watch television with people who don't know my name half the time. And I think about my house. I think about my garden, the peonies I planted that bloom every June. I think about my piano, the one I haven't played in 10 years because I convinced myself my fingers were too stiff. I think about the books on my shelf, the ones with my handwriting in the margins, and I wonder if Susan donated them or if they're in a box somewhere. And the hardest part is the erosion of self. It's not that they treat you badly, it's that they treat you uniformly. You stop being the person who taught high school English for 30 years, who knew the difference between a metaphor and a simile, who could recite Yeats from memory. You become the lady in 214 who needs help with her dentures. And bit by bit, you start to believe it. You stop asserting your preferences. You stop asking for things. You stop being a person, and you start being a patient. I see women here who came in 10 years ago, and they've just faded. They sit in their chairs, their mouths slightly open, and they're not sad exactly. They're just absent. And I'm terrified that I'm going to become that one day Susan will come to visit, and I won't have anything to say because nothing happens anymore. My whole life, my entire 92 years of memories, jokes, opinions, heartbreaks, it will just be this room, this chair, this slice of carrot cake. So why am I telling you this? Not to depress you, to warn you, because you're probably thinking, that won't be me, I'll be different, I'll stay active, I'll be one of those 90-year-olds who runs marathons. And maybe you will. But here's what I've learned. Being active isn't the same as being intentional. You can be busy all day long and still be making the choices that lead you to a place like this. The problem is denial. We're all in denial about aging. We think it's something that happens to other people, or that it'll happen suddenly at the very end, or that we'll be the exception. So we don't plan. We don't have the hard conversations. We don't look at our homes and ask, is this going to work for me in 10 years? We don't build relationships with younger people who might help us stay in our communities. We isolate ourselves, thinking we're protecting our independence, and then we're shocked when we're left with no one but our exhausted children who have to make impossible decisions. I'll give you an example. There's a woman here, Eleanor, she's 88. She was a concert pianist. Her hands are gnarled now, but every now and then she'll sit at the piano in the activity room and play something from memory, and it's beautiful. But she's here because she lived alone in a big apartment, and her son lived in London, and she had a stroke, just a small one. But because there was no one to check on her for 2 days, by the time they found her, the damage was done. She can't live alone anymore. If she'd moved into one of those independent living communities 10 years earlier, the kind where you have your own apartment, but there's a call button and a dining hall and people around, she'd probably still be playing piano in her own space. She'd have friends, she'd have autonomy, but she didn't want to give up her independence, and now she has none. That's the twisted math of aging. The things you do to protect your independence in the short term, staying in a house that's too big, refusing help, pushing people away, those are the very things that destroy it in the long term. Real independence isn't about doing everything yourself. It's about having the foresight to build a life that can accommodate your future limitations so that you don't have to surrender everything all at once. I think about my friend Margaret. She was smarter than me. When she was 70, she sold her big house and moved into a retirement community. Not a nursing home, a community. She had a little 2-bedroom cottage. There was a bus that took her to the grocery store. There was a pool. There were people her age who she'd have dinner with every night. She complained about it at first, said it was too quiet, too many old people. But she was there for 15 years. 15 years of independence. She traveled. She had parties. She had a life. And when she finally did need help, it was easy. The staff was already there. Her daughter didn't have to scramble. She didn't have to move again. She just needed a little more care, and she got it without being uprooted from everything she knew. I called her a traitor. Can you believe that? When she first moved, I called her a traitor to the idea of aging gracefully. I thought she was giving up. I thought she was admitting defeat. And she was the one who got to stay in her home until the day she died. Her home, not a facility. Her little cottage with her own furniture and her own garden. I was the one who stayed strong, and I ended up here. So here's my practical advice, and I'm begging you to take it seriously. First, have the conversation with your kids now. Not when you're in crisis, not when you're in the hospital. Have it over dinner when everyone's calm. Tell them what you want. Be specific. Do you want to age in place? Great. What does that look like? Who's going to check on you? How are you going to handle stairs? What's the plan if you can't drive? If your answer is, I don't want to think about it, then you're not making a plan, you're making a gamble, and the odds are not in your favor. Second, look at your home with cold, hard eyes. I'm not saying you have to move tomorrow, but ask yourself, can I age here? If you have stairs, what's your strategy? Are you going to install a stairlift now, while you can still choose the nice one? Or are you going to wait until you're desperate and your kids are picking the cheapest option from a medical supply catalog? Is your bathroom safe? Are there grab bars? Is there a walk-in shower? I know it's ugly. I know it feels like you're admitting you're old. But let me tell you what's uglier. Being lifted out of your bathtub by 2 paramedics after you've fallen, wearing nothing but embarrassment. Third, stop tying your identity to your possessions. Your house is not you. Your furniture is not you. Your ability to mow your own lawn is not you. I know it feels like it is. I know the thought of leaving your home feels like a death in itself. But I'm here to tell you from the other side of that decision that the death of a home is not the same as the death of a person. You can build a new home. You can create new routines. What you can't get back is the years you spent shrinking, the friendships you let fade because you stopped having people over, the opportunities you missed to build a community that would have caught you before you fell. And here's the part that's hardest to hear. You need to stop being a burden to your children before you become one. I know that sounds harsh, but I see my daughter's face every Sunday, and I see the guilt. She feels guilty that I'm here. She feels guilty that she couldn't take care of me herself. And I let that happen. I let her carry that weight because I was too proud to make the changes that would have kept me independent. I made her the bad guy so I could be the victim. And I regret that more than anything. More than the house, more than the garden, more than my piano. I regret the months of arguing, the silent treatments, the way I made her feel like she was abandoning me when she was just trying to survive. Your children love you. They want you to be safe and happy. but they also have their own lives. They have jobs, marriages, children, mortgages. They cannot be your full-time caregivers without breaking, and if you love them, you won't ask them to. You'll make the hard decisions now so they don't have to make impossible ones later. I'm 92. I don't have many years left, maybe a few, maybe less, and I'm not going to tell you that I've made peace with being here, because I haven't. Every morning when I wake up, for a split second, I think I'm in my own bed, in my own room, with the sunlight coming through the curtains that I picked out. And then I see the fluorescent light above the door, and I remember. And I have to spend the first 5 minutes of every day grieving the life I could have had if I'd just been brave enough to make the changes when I still could. Don't do that to yourself. Don't wait until you're a fall or a diagnosis away from losing every choice. Look at your life right now, not as it is, but as it's going to be in 10 years. And start making the decisions that your future self will thank you for. Because your future self is listening. She's sitting in a chair somewhere, maybe in her own home, maybe in a place like this, and she's looking back at you. She's begging you to be smarter than she was. She's begging you to let go of the things that don't matter so you can hold on to the things that do. I can't go back. I can't move into Margaret's little cottage, or put a stairlift in my house, or have one more book club in my living room. Those doors are closed. But you still have time. You still have the chance to be the person who ages with dignity. Not because you fought off every change, but because you welcomed the ones that kept you connected, kept you safe, kept you human. Don't let your pride write the ending to your story. Pick up the pen now while your hand is still steady.